Hello everyone, my name is Dennis from Client, and today I'm thrilled to welcome you to your first day of Client University. Today we'll do an overview of Client and cover its bases together. We'll start by looking at the different Client apps available out of the box. We'll then make sure you get the best out of some pretty interesting features, Salesforce features, such as related lists and list views. We will then glance over data and concepts that are available on client records, and we'll introduce you to some client tools, both those who can give you a global overview and understanding of your project and resource allocation and capacity, but also the more practical tools to help you with timesheet, time off, expenses, invoices management. So as you can see, there's a lot on the plate, and without further ado, let's move on with the main course. Let's start by browsing a bit in the Salesforce org. So right now in this org, you see I am on the sales app, standard app, and I want to look for client stuff. So first thing to do is go to the app launcher top left, and from there you can search for items, for objects, or for applications. Client comes out of the box with three different client apps. The first one is Client PM, you've got Client Tab, and you also have Client Config. I'll start with the Client Tab because this one is a view that we're familiar with usually in Salesforce. So the Client Tab just allows you to see a different object at the top of your page. So these are client objects or client items that you can use, and by clicking there you're gonna browse in different it's either you access to the record by there, or you're gonna click to the object and you're gonna access to the list view page of this object. But when you browse in there and you go back and forth, now I'm just clicking everywhere to look at how it behaves. See, now I'm back on the project, so it shows where I am, which object I'm on. So it's very useful. It's a very standard view that has been there for quite a while at Salesforce. The other view we like to use is the client config. I will not take a lot of time, but just to expose the fact that we're in a tabular view, and what you see at the top are object that we like to call the setup object. So it's going to be our main playground in the client configuration tutorial. It's going to be upcoming. So let's not focus on this one and take a bit more time on the Client PM, which is our favorite one, the one we like to recommend. So in the Client PM, it's a console view. Because you've got console licenses, you're allowed to see that. The Client PM app allows you to select, for example, an object from this pick list that you can change. So for example, I'm going to go in Client Project. You've got the list view, the same list view, but this is the interesting part, is that once you start browsing in and you select, for example, I selected the Acme 4 project, and I'm just going to go click a bit everywhere to show you how it behaves. So on the client tasks related to this project, on one specific task, and I want to show you that this path is going to remain available at the top of the page. And that's one of the key highlight of using the console view, is that you will always be able to understand how you reach that specific page. What's the story? What's your path? And another cool thing about it is that if you start working on something else, I'm looking at a proposal and I'm browsing, I can always go back to my previous items I was looking at, because of these tabs that are still available, and it's possible to delete them all and start fresh from a new session. So the Client PM console view is really Client PM app is really what we like to recommend our customers. One of the key features that come with using Salesforce are list view, and we'll always like to do a little reminder on what list views can help you achieve. So let's look in the system. Currently, I'm on a client project object, and I'm browsing the all list view. So a couple of things just to remember. There's always a possibility for you to select which list view you want to see by default when clicking on and when selecting an object. So in my case, I want the all list view because I pinned it. I want the all list view to be the one when I go on client project, which means on this list view is a selection of project records that I can select from here. So these would be the filter. So currently I don't have any filter. So I'm looking at all client project, and that's why I named this list view all. When you create a list view, there's a couple of possibilities. So you can select which fields from the object that you want to display. In this case, so all metadata is going to be available at the top as columns. And in your columns, each line, you're going to see the data of each object. Pretty straightforward. But what is interesting to know is that creating a list view is something you can do on any Salesforce object. So this is very an out-of-the-box functionality. This way, I'm going to show you maybe with an example. So I could maybe browse in the already existing list view. For example, the sales pipeline project is a list view. So I'm still on client project object. I'm looking at the sales pipeline project list view that was created. If we take a look at the filters, so I see that we're considering all projects, but we also want the project status to be pipeline. So it's maybe something that you will use in your organization as well. The pipeline projects. You don't want project templates and you don't want task templates. So if you browse quickly, and I'm going to give you a little idea of other things you can do with list views, which is the inline editing. So here you see that these two projects are called Z template. However, they were not flagged as project template. So I can always modify one record, or I can even select both records and do that modification. And Salesforce will give you the possibility to update more than one record at the same time, and you save. So this is the power of inline editing. You're modifying the data of many records at the same time from the list view. And this is Salesforce out of the box, and client benefits of that. So if I refresh now my page here, you'll see that these two project templates disappeared because I wanted to see the sales pipeline project. So this was just to give you an idea of what you can do using the list views. And we strongly recommend our users to create their own list view. At this point, what I like to do is use maybe the story mode, and I call it the account perspective. We will browse into client using a different path to get to the information we like to see. For example, if I go on the page, we were on the client project list view. You can access, of course, any account from straight the object in the drop down, or if you know which account you want to look at, for example, the Acme account, you can, by clicking here, you're going to access obviously to the record, the Acme account record. What is interesting is not only that you will have the details, so all of the fields related to this account, but also all of the related object. And this is where it becomes interesting. Not only you can see the contacts related to this account and the opportunities, but you can also create related lists of projects related to this account. So all of the projects, what is the business we've done with this customer? And you can also select which relevant information, which fields from project object you want to display here to give you a good overview of the business you've done or you are about to do with this customer. You can see some projects, the status of these projects, if they are upcoming in the pipeline, also maybe the percent in margin, and based on the information your user have access to, this could also change. The other interesting portion is the invoice invoices related list. So as you know, client is not only doing the project management, but is covering the full cycle up to invoices. So you can see the related invoices that were sent out to this customer. The total balance, the due date, if it's sent, if it's in draft, if it's not already sent. So you could see all of these, and at the bottom of each related list view, you can select and view all items. In this case, I already see them all. The other one that could be interesting to see on the account is the survey response, which we will not cover, but is another object out of the box from client. So you can use the surveys, and you would have access to this account survey responses. So this is the account perspective I like to bring as an idea for you to browse in your system when using client. So at this point, we're getting closer to looking at the data we can find on some client related records. Let's start by looking at the client project and what we can find, what elements we can find on that record. So let's jump to this view. We were on an account. Let's scroll down to its client project related list and select one of the projects we'd like to look at. So when you load a client project page, you see that there are a lot of visual cues, stuff that will help you understand information right away from your project. You've got a breadcrumb line at the top, which tells you the status of your project. A couple of charts that come out of the box will take a bit of more time, but you can customize this and have your own reports being displayed on this page. If I start from the top of the page, you've got some very key information. So what's the status of this project? What's the percentage complete? The estimated hours that come from all of the tasks that I created under this project, what I initially estimated on this project in terms of hours, and what are the remaining hours, the balance of hours to do. So this first section is helping you at a glance to look at your project. Then in this section, we see the link to all of the related objects to a client project. Let's just take a quick overview. So this project has currently no proposal. It does not come from any proposal that was created previously. It holds a lot of tasks, so it has more than 10 tasks. You can click on view all. Keep in mind that this is the standard Salesforce view, and that's what I'm going through, and I'm not talking about how to use it right now. But you can see, as I said, so you've got the tasks, related tasks, the related project assignment. So this would be the link between your project resources and their function to this project. So you can have, in this case, it's one-to-one. So you've got 5 project resources that will work on this project. They are assigned to this project. They could log hours, log time on this project. So that's what project assignments are. Task assignment, a bit of the same concept. It's just that from these 5 project assignments, which one is assigned to which task, right? So you see all of the task assignment in this view. If you're using risk or issues, you could log some records related to this project. The baseline, so as its name stands, is very easy to create a project baseline. So here there's one that has been created in the past. Invoices would be a related list to all invoices related to this project. Same thing with the timesheets. So all timesheets that were created. We'll go a bit more in depth in the future on the difference with the timesheet details and timesheet splits. What I can give you right now to help you understand is that the splits are the smallest increments, so the actual day at which the time has been entered. So let's just keep this in mind for now. Expenses, so if you have any expense report that would hold some expense lines that would be visible here, any files related to this project, and what's the history. So selected fields you would like to see any change on them. So for example, who changed the name of the project, who changed the billable, if it was a billable or not project, etc., etc. So you could select this and you would have access to these records. Here you also have the Kanban view. So by clicking this, I get on, because some customer may be more agile, would like to benefit from using the Kanban. So the Kanban tool is something that will allow you to see different tasks. So from all the tasks I have, I could group them using a different field on the client project. In this case, it's status. And I can sort them. Right now they are filtered, so all of the tasks are filtered by status or grouped by status, and sort by created date. You can filter also tasks that are maybe active, or some, maybe you could look at the milestone tasks, etc. Some filters, so it's a very easy tool to use. What is interesting though is that all of these tools are live. So when you're changing something on the Kanban, it's gonna update the record straight in the system. So right now what it did is that I took the provided documentation task and slided it to the scheduled, so it changed the status of this task. So I'm gonna put it back to where it was right now, just to show you. Here we go. So it's now done. So it interacts quickly with the project and the data. Now let's look and dive in the details. At the top, the first section here gives you information, key information about the project. So I will not go field by field, but this is what this section will hold in terms of information. The project health section is a summary of some fields that fields that are doing calculation in the background, and you'll see with indicator how it is going depending on the data that has been entered in the progression and the hours log, etc., etc. Financial setup, so we're talking about more anything that is money related. Is it a billable project or not? What kind of billing type is it using? So what is going to be the billing mechanism to generate invoices and to charge the customers? In the end, are there any rate cards used? So this is a concept that we will explain in the client configuration. Who's the billing contact? What's the currency used, etc., etc. Time and effort. So we always start with what we've estimated at the top. So when we created the project, we thought we estimated 264 hours to happen on this project, and then the rest is going to come from different calculation, roll-ups of task-related data that will be bring back here. Same thing with the hours that could be logged by your individual, or that could be logged and approved and invoiced to your customers. So this is what you'd see in this section. Now this is the money related section with all the same concepts. So you've got the expected revenue that we manually entered when we created this project, and the rest is more, as I said in the previous section, roll-ups of different information as we go on in the in progress of this project. That allows you, for example, to see quickly the margin on the project. The configuration section is could be hidden for some for some users, or maybe just in read only mode, but this is telling you at a glance how a bit more about this project, how it works and how it behaves. Is it considered as a template? Is it considered as a global project, which we will talk a bit later on and explain? Is it included in your utilization, or is it a project you would like to keep aside? So this is the information about the configuration of this project, and all of this is collapsible, right? All of these sections you can hide very easily. The latest section is about the system information, which is Salesforce standard. So this is what you can see in terms of data on a project. On the right side here, as I said earlier, you've got some reports. Out of the box, there are two here that I'd like to present. So here, as the name explains, parent task estimate versus actual hours. In the end, when we say parent task, would be probably, in this case, some phases. So we want to understand at a glance where we're at in the different phases we design on a project, and what has been estimated versus what has been logged what are the actual hours on this project, right? So you can see this and hover over this information and have a quick understanding, time related, hours related. And here, a bit of the same concept, but a view by role. So what are the planned hours versus the logged hours by role? So how many hours are we expecting our solution architect to work, and what have they logged so far? Gives you another very interesting perspective to understand your project. So the other tabs are Chatter, really the out-of-the-box chat, Salesforce Chatter functionality, which allow you to, on any record, the chatter is enabled, so it's by object, but when on a record it's enabled, you can post and you can share updates with your colleagues, and you can exchange back and forth with them. And the activity basically would give you a recap of either information you want to store about this project or things that happened. You can log a call or keep history of some fields also in this section. So this is really the overview of the client project, but it's only the beginning. And I'm saying this because client is not only a project management tool that is in Salesforce, but it comes with very interesting UI that we need to expose and show you the benefits. So at the top right here, you've got a lot of different tools in which you can dive in, and we will look at that just a bit later. One quick tip about segmenting your project data. If you quickly look at your client projects, you might be able to filter them depending on if, for example, they are customer facing or internal project, or if they are time and expense or fixed fee. And what I want to propose to you now is to take a bit of time to look at the project type and billing type field. On your project here, you can see I'm going to select a project on any client project record. You've got a field called a project type, and this field is a pick list field in which you could select the type of project you want to track. In my demo org right now, as I said earlier, I've got internal and customer, and how I used it is that I went back at the top of my client projects here, and I created list views. For example, I can quickly see all of the projects that are customer facing, and I even chosen to display different data to have a better overview of what's going on. Same thing with the internal project. So yes, sometimes people forget that client could be very useful to create your onboarding projects or your offboarding projects to when you are onboarding or offboarding resources, right? So you could track tasks to be done, items to be done, and when your resources are collaborating to these projects, they could also log time against this, but they would be internal, so you would not generate invoices. So that's how we decided to structure this in this demo org. The other very interesting field that people are sometimes using to categorize their project or to filter their project is the billing type. So billing type will not only tell you if it's for example, time and expense or fixed fee, but it will dictate the billing mechanism of and tell client how to behave with this project when it comes to invoicing the customer. So yes, it could be useful to segment, but sometimes you need that project type to go one step further to the billing type. So billing type is going to be accessible in the financial setup of your projects. Right here, you see that this project is fixed fee. So a fixed fee, I won't go in the weeds, but very quickly, a fixed fee type of project will not consider time entries for invoicing. It would only look for fixed amount to be invoiced to the customer. So those are really two little fields to consider when it comes to segmenting your client project data. At Client, we really like the ideology of freedom within a framework, and that's exactly what comes with using templates. So in this little session, we'll cover project templates, task templates and how to insert task templates in existing project. I'll explain a bit what they are and what are their purpose. Let's look in the system. So right now I'm looking at my client project object, and I'm already on a template list view that I created. In this list view, I have access to all project templates that I created in the past. A project template will be only a regular project record that you've selected to be a project template. By clicking this checkbox, it will make this configuration of a project ready to be used as a project template. Same thing with the task template. If you check this, it will make this project ready to be used as a task template whenever you're asked to choose a project template or a task template. Now, what does a project template allows you to do in a task template? The project template will allow you to generate or create a new project starting from this project and using all of the project details and all of the information related to this project, including the assignee to this project. So you could start and you could create a new project using this project template, right? And it would carry over the information such as the billing type, if the project is billable, and so on and so forth. We'll do one example at the end. The task template will do almost the same thing, except that it will carry only all of the tasks related to a project. So these 4 tasks, for example, if I'm using this template, these 4 tasks will be brought over to my new project or to my existing project. So in the process of creating a new project, let's go back here and click on new. So I was on client project. I want to create a new client project, and I will very soon at the beginning of my data entry be asked to answer a couple of questions, including the template. So not only I'll be asked to name my project, which is, by the way, the only field required. So let's call it testing project templates. Okay, template. Obviously, we'll select only one. Now, first question, do you want to clone your project? Do you want to start your project by cloning a single project template? If I click this, a new box, a new field, a drop down is available, and I can select what I want to do with this project. Do I want to create a new employee onboarding, right? Maybe that's the case, and I would use this template to start my new project because I have a new employee coming in. Or do I need to do a Sales Cloud implementation? That's also another template, but this one would be more customer facing. Let's use this one, and I will stop. I won't add anything else, and I'll just save right now. It's gonna create. The system is just taking everything. It's cloning. The project cloning API has started. It's gonna take all of the information from my project, from my tasks. It's gonna look at the assignment and create the project. Once this is done, my new project will be ready to be used, and I'll be able to either modify the project or add resources to the project or play with the timeline, put it to my hand, basically. So that's the magic of the using the project template. I now have my project, and if I look at the project assignment, I've got some placeholders, right? Obviously myself is in there, but I could only rely on changing in the end some placeholders, or even removing myself from the project if I don't need to. And the tasks that were part of the template are now appearing in my project. Obviously, they all have today as a start date, because that's how the system behaves, and you can change these by adjusting your project a bit later on. But I just wanted to show you how the project template was behaving. Let's go back on our client project and now create a project by inserting task template. So here, let's call it testing task templates. And what this one would do would allow you to clone using multiple task templates. So the chunk of tasks of each project would be brought over to my new project I'm creating. That's the idea. So I could use these two templates and just combine all of the tasks from these two project templates in the new project. So as you see, it's not really the same operation that it's doing. It's looking at the relationship between the tasks and will add these tasks on my project. The templates in the order we chose them are going to be displayed on your project in the same order. So if I go on the Workspace, for example, I could see the first task template and then the second task template and so on and so forth. What is also a very good use case of the task template, here the tasks are there, so they come from the other template. Obviously you'll be able to see, and we'll cover that in an upcoming session, video, but from the Workspace, if you go there, you will see you have a different UI, different visibility of all the tasks that are in your new project here with the different assignee that were brought. But if I want to look at these, I'm just going to reschedule them here so that I can see all of the dependencies and the waterfall that was created from my two task templates. So that's just the idea of using the task templates to create a project, the project template to create one project from scratch, bringing all of the information. Now maybe what you want to do, if we go back to the testing project that we just created, the project template, we might look at this project and think or feel that there are some tasks that you would like to insert or do in this project. So there's always a possibility of inserting a task template. So by clicking here, it's going to behave a bit like we saw in creation of the project, and you only need to select which task template you want to include to the existing project. So, and that could be done at any time. So you could select any of these, for example, the Sales Cloud implementation. I won't select this one because I think our project was already this. Let's take this one here. I'm going to insert the template into the project. So it's doing exactly the same process. It's going to take the tasks from my task template and put it at the end, at the bottom of my current project I was working on. So if I go back on the Workspace of this project, right here, you will see at the bottom that the new tasks have been added. And I can also reschedule here because we didn't do it at the beginning here. So you'll see that my existing project was there and that the new task templates here were added at the bottom. In this case, in this task template, there were no dependency or relationship between the tasks, but they were added at the bottom of my current project. So that is really the magic of using templates. It allows you to quickly create a project, to save a lot of time and to gain a lot of efficiency in the structure of what you're about to deliver. You're not forgetting anything. So every time you're creating a new project, all of these tasks are already there. You can also improve not only the project you just created, but you can also improve your templates so that you always keep up to date. And you can also alter and change an existing project by adding a chunk of work to be done. So you're always up and running with the template. So it's really freedom within a framework. Now is the time to look at the different tools available on your client project record. Let's look quickly on the project. At the top right corner, there are a couple of buttons, tools that I just want to show you to give you another perspective of your client project. So the first one is called the Workspace, and the Workspace is the old Gantt chart. I say the old one because client made a lot of progress, put a lot of effort on it. So it's now very flexible, and there's a couple of different views you can have to this one, but I'll keep this for a separate tutorial. But as you can see here, I opened the Workspace and I see my whole project with the numbers that are displayed usually in the standard Salesforce view, and in this case per phases. So I decided that these parent tasks would be my phase. If I expand this phase that is 100% complete, I would see the different tasks that were completed, who was assigned, and how many hours were estimated, and log, and so on and so forth. So this is what you can visually see from your project, and you can also, a bit like we saw in the Kanban, filter to see, for example, only some specific tasks of your project. In this case, I could maybe be interested in looking only at the milestone. So these would be the different milestone where we are today and what we're expecting. So it gives you a lot of possibilities on your project to view your data differently. If I go back on the project and look at the other one, which is called the resource plan, once again, we'll make some different use case a bit later on, but the resource plan is giving you the possibility to look at the data related to your project resources and their availability or what is planned or scheduled for them on your project. So I'm in my project context. I'm really in the Acme 4 project. I see the 5 resources that are assigned to my project. Right now I'm looking at the plan view. So at the project level, how many hours were planned for them. I can also look at the schedule, which would allow me to expand, for example, a resource and look at not only the high level view, but break down these assigned hours at the task level. So what are we expecting Roxanne to work on the week of the September 19th? So you would see that detail. Another very useful tool, if I go back here, is that if I click beside Roxanne, it's gonna, Roxanne was my engagement lead on my project. So by clicking right next to her name, I will see the different engagement lead resources that could be available in my org if I ever want to replace that resource. We'll cover that a bit later on. If I go back on my project, the other one I want to bring your attention to is the baseline. So at any moment in your project, you could create a baseline. So the only thing you need is to set a description. So maybe at the beginning of your project, at the midterm of your project, or when any deliverable are met, you enter your description and you set this as a baseline and you save. And this will create, as I said, a baseline record, which is more so a picture of your project as a specific time. So it will keep some key information for you to understand what happened at that specific time, because the project is always live. We will cover the insert task template a bit later on. So these 3 are very important for you to know and very useful UI to be used in the course of your project. At any point, you might want to have a different view of what's going on in your organization. So you might not want to look specifically at one project, but you want to understand what's cooking, what's going on. So Client has different other tools for that, and I call them the overview tools. So let's go in the system in the app launcher. The first one I want to expose is the global workspace. With the global workspace, as its name stands, global goes for the overview workspace. It's going to be very similar to the project workspace that we looked a bit earlier. Right now, let's look at this and we'll see all of the projects. You've got all of the same features at the top to narrow down what you're looking at. But basically, you've got all of the projects in one Gantt chart that are stacked one on top of the other based on the delivery and the time. So for example, we were on the Acme 4. The Gantt chart of my Acme 4 is here. So I could expand it and look at all of the tasks. But I could look at other projects that happen in the same time, right? That I could open either if they're, right now I'm looking on all project, but I might want to focus on, for example, here I could look at customer projects and display these projects. So you'll see the list will be narrowed down. I have fewer projects, but these are all what I call customer projects. So you could have that visibility. Once again, different filters, same thing with the task. You can also change what you want to see and save this as a preset for you to get back on with all of the other possibilities of time framing. And of course, if you only want to see the chart or maybe a grid view, that is also a possibility. So this goes for the global workspace. The other one, which is more global, will be called the resource planner. So you'll see a lot of similitude with the resource plan that you had in context. Here you go, that you had in context on your project, but now it's going to be global. So you're going to be able to compare all of the resources throughout in your organization throughout any projects they might be assigned to. So right now, what you have, you could have the same filters here. So using any objects from client, you could narrow down what you want to see. That's a possibility to specify which resource you want to see or which project you want to see. Same time framing options. You want to look at the same thing, maybe planned hours. So at the project level, scheduled hours. So anything that was booked related to a task on a specific project, and you have that currently per month. So let me show you maybe Roxanne Green. Here I'm going to expand both Jenny and Roxanne. So you've got a couple of hours. You can see what was entered as time off or holidays, what's coming also in the future. So when it comes to selecting a resource and understanding who could work on an eventual project, that's really the way to see the comparison between individual. So you could filter and only see, for example, your engagement lead by selecting the role. I'm just going to give you an idea of what and apply. So this way I could at a glance compare all my engagement lead and see maybe what they are currently working on. Right here I can expand which project she's assigned to in September, for example, how many hours I'm expecting, even go at the task level as we expose. So it's exactly the same thing as a resource plan. However, it's global. The other possibility you can have is that you can display actual hours. So if ever there are hours that have been logged or worked by this resource, you could compare the hours, the actual hours to the planned hours. In this case, the scheduled hours. So in this case, we did not have anything scheduled for her, but she did log time on the Acme 2 and this Acme 2 project also. And that's it. So she logged 9 hours in total, right? So you can also look at the resource planner by project. Here you go. So instead of seeing resources on the left, I see projects. And then when you expand, you will see people that are assigned to this project. Here you go. And you can expand the hours and see what they will work on. If I take one step back and look at the plan hours here and expand the same. So these are the two individuals that have actually planned hours on this project. So you will not see all of the resources unless they have some time scheduled against each project. So it's another tool that could be relevant for you to have a global overview on your projects. So resource planner, global workspace. Let's move on. It's now time to take a look at how Client will help you in relation with time off entries, timesheets and timesheet approval. Let's quickly go back in the system. As you can see here, I'm still on my client project list view. What I need to do is go back on the app launcher, and we'll start by looking at time offs. So by writing time, I see all of these items coming up. I want to go on time offs. So this interface is really a standard list view of time off object. Right now I'm logged in as Roxanne Green, so I see all my time offs right here. So I already submitted 2 time offs in the past. One was for vacation. The other one was for sickness, was only 4 hours. Vacation for 5 days. So total 40 hours. This is how it looks like. Now I'm going to show you how to create a time off, which is very, very simple. You go at the top here, you click on new. Obviously the resource is Roxanne Green. The type, so just to mention that you will have the opportunity to select and to create what kind of types your organization is recognizing, type of time offs, right? In this case, I'm going to create another one, maybe vacation, because I want to take a Friday off on this on September 5th, 9th, sorry. So I'm going to enter both the start date and end date. Just be aware that if you're not entering any hours, it's gonna take your full day, which would be in this case 8 hours. But what I want to do is I want to ask to take 4 hours off. So that's how I would do it. And then I would save this record. As you can see, the approval status is editable, but in this version, I'm on administration profile, so I have access, read-write access to this field. Normally for users, this would appear as read-only, sorry. So once this is done, you need to submit it for approval, and your dedicated approver, based on how you will design your approval process, will receive a notification. Let's go back on the list view. I'm going to refresh this list view and show you here. I've got my new time off that was created with the date, start date, end date. 4 hours were requested, and obviously it's not submitted yet because we did not press on it. But here are different time offs at the top. I just want to bring your attention to these two because, actually these three, they're all in the same week. And we'll go in the timesheet to look at how we can see the time offs in the timesheet and which one we will see. So right now, I would need to go on my timesheet, and I will move forward to the next week here. Now there's a lot of things that is already filled out in this timesheet, but I just want to focus right now on the time offs for the time being. Look, the PTO line, there's one line of vacation, and that includes the 16 hours that were approved, and that's where I want to bring your attention to. So if I look at the time offs, out of these time offs, on that given week, only 2 days were approved. So it means that you will need approval process in order to see these time offs as a line in your timesheet. That being said, let's look at the overall timesheet. At the top, you've got a lot of information that sums up what's going on in this timesheet. Total hours, your work week hours that is brought from your work schedule, your resource work schedule, the total utilization with some billable and non-billable information that you'll see here, and the amount of hours. Global overview. After that, what we see, we have some time entries that has already been done. So on 2 different projects and 2 different tasks, you've got hours that were entered on the 8th and on the 9th with some comments here. Test note, and this one, supported new employee. So what I want to bring your attention to is these 2 different projects, and we'll create some new time entries. So when you click on the drop-down list here, you should see only projects that are on which you are assigned, that you can log time on. And this is the list of project on which this project resource has project assignments. So these projects are already started, and they are not archived, and the project resource can log time. So I'll choose again the Acme 4. Once this is done, you'll see the list of tasks you can log time against, right? So obviously the milestones are not something you want to log time against, and that's why we keep them in a separate folder, and we add that star icon automatically in front of a milestone to avoid any kind of errors. But I could go on the develop stories here and log some hours. Let's do 2 hours. Notes. I'll write notes to customer just to make you think of the fact that you could train your users so that the notes they are entering are customer facing, because this is one feature we can do on a time and expense project. For example, when you're invoicing your customers, you want to see all of the lines of your time entries, and you might want to expose the comments so that the customer knows not only what you worked on, how many hours you logged, but also what are the details that you've done during that 2 hours. So that's a very interesting feature. I'm going to save this just to show you how we recommend using it. So the line has been saved, and you get automatically a new line coming in. If you can also add a line by clicking new without saving. The other one I want to show you in the project list is this project that we saw a bit at the top, which is called New Employee Onboarding Project 4 months. What is different with this project is that Roxanne Green does not have any project assignment. And I just want to bring your attention to this because the 4 month, here's the project. So I looked at the top just to search if I was able to access this project. Here's the project. What I want to bring your attention to is that it's an onboarding project. So it's an internal project on which I want people to log time in. And for that matter, we put this project as global project. So this little checkbox here will make that project available for anyone in your organization to log time against. So that's why the new employee onboarding project 4 months is available. Same thing, I could select a task and log time. The last line here represents all holiday dates that would be included in the holiday schedule your project resource is related to. So in this case, a project resource related to a holiday schedule that has the 2022 Labor Day that would happen on September 5th. So you've got those 8 hours that counts as worked hours on the total of hours for this timesheet, which is 33. Now what you can do with the timesheet at the end is obviously submit this timesheet for your approver to approve this time. Once again, you can select to have only approved time to show up on upcoming invoices. So that's very important to know. You can submit without saving, but what we strongly recommend to do is to save on a daily basis, and at the end of your week, ask your resources to submit so that you have one timesheet to review and one approval notification per timesheet. So this timesheet has been submitted. If I refresh this, you will see that, I can go back on the timesheet itself. You will see that it's been submitted and it's locked. I cannot edit it right now. It's submitted. I could add more time, meaning that people that already submitted a timesheet and needing to add more time could do it, but this time would also need to be approved in order to be captured by the generation of your invoices. But that's going to be in another video. Sorry. So this is really the timesheet. What I want to bring your attention to, let's go back in time a bit and play with another timesheet. So there are two features at the bottom of the timesheet, which is called copy from previous week and copy from schedule. So you see on the week of the 8th to 14th, I already worked here and I invested a bit of time on 2 different projects. So on the next week, what I could do is use that copy from previous week to bring any of the projects I was working on and the task and create new lines to get ready to log your time. So copy from previous week could be very, very interesting when you have resources that are working on for different projects or different in different tasks. Now I just moved without saving because I want to expose you some possibilities. You can also copy from schedule. So by clicking copy from schedule, it will bring automatically create lines on any project for which you are assigned. So I've got task assignments on these different tasks on the Roadrunner project. It created 3 lines automatically on which I'm ready to start working my week and start logging time. So these 2 could be very helpful for your users when it comes to entering time on their timesheet. Just a quick one for you to know. So let's go on the Acme 4 project that we looked a lot lately. And on any task of this project, I just want to let you know that one could decide to work differently and enter their time differently. Instead of going on the My Timesheet interface, there is a log time tab on any tasks. So by clicking the log time, you're already in context. You already know that it's related to the project, to the task. You can enter hours here or start the timer. So this is another feature that sometimes customers like to use straight on the task. Now it's time to look at the timesheet approval module. So here, I'm just going to, in the app launcher, search for approval, and timesheet approval will show up. So this is an interface that was created by Client, allowing you to search for time to be approved. So you've got a date span you can select. So I'm going to just change the time frame from September 3rd to September 17th because I want to narrow it down to the time entry I just created. I will not bother with selecting the resource or account or project owner. So each of these would allow you to filter down the time you're looking for or what you're working on to approve. Here, the approval status, if I'd leave it to my approval, I would search, and this is very useful when you have an approver going to this interface and looking only for stuff he is supposed to approve, right? In this case, I'll put it to submitted because I want to see stuff that has been submitted to be approved, and I will not care about the approver because I'm still Roxanne Green, and I'm just going to search. You can expand the number of lines to be seen. Right now it's stated to 5. Right now you have 3 different lines, so let's look at them. The first one holds 24 hours. If you want to see the detail, you can click on the clock here, and you'll notice that this will be the PDO and holidays. So that's the combination of all of the hours that were done here, so those 24 hours. So I'm probably fine with this to approve. And then you'll see there are 2 hours on the new employee onboarding project. So you could see, same thing, the line, timesheet detail, with the hours that were included. And if you click on here, supported new employee, that will be the comment that will be stored and appear on an eventual invoice to be created. The last line here will hold information about the Acme 4 project, same concept, 7 hours, and you've got the total cost. So I can select all if I want, or I can select everything in each line. So if ever there would be more time entries of the same project or the same nature in the same box. So you've got different options to select your timesheet, or you could only select one line if you want. So you could reject a line and approve the rest. So it's all possible to do so. So you define, once you've selected, if you reject the status, if you reject the timesheet, or if you approve them all. In this case, I'm going to move it to approved. And what it does is it's approving this timesheet. So the timesheet, the time entries have been approved, and they'd be ready to be invoiced if they were, for example, on a time and expense type of projects to be sent out. So this covers the 3 different modules related to time: how to create time off, how they will appear on your timesheet, how to create timesheet, and also how to approve these timesheets. In your org, for some projects, you might want to track expenses, and client can definitely help you with this using the expenses, expense lines, and different expense types. So let's look a bit more on, for example, on this project, the Acme 2 project, there is an expense related object and expense line. The way it works is that for any project, if you want to track expenses, you will need to create one expense folder, one expense report, and to each of these expense, you're going to add the expense lines. So let's do it right now. So on here, on the client project Acme 2, let's first look at who are the project assignee. I think it's Jenny Red and Roxanne. Good. So I'm going to go back on expense, create a new expense report. Here, with today's date, project resource going to be Jenny Red. She's assigned to the project. Maybe Jenny's expenses. There you go. Project owner is Denny for now. And I won't put any approval status and just save it for now. As you saw, there were options for accounting systems. So if ever you're interested in doing that relationship between your client instance and any accounting system, there are integration existing for that. And we could maybe review this in another video. So my expense report is ready. The only thing that needs to be done now is to add expense line. And a client makes it very easy by adding that tab right here. So if you click on the add expense line, it will prompt you with different options to create your expenses. So here you've got the date, you have to select expense type. So just be aware that in the configuration of your client instance, you'll be able to select what expense type you want to recognize. In this case, I've got different ones. Let's select the meals for now and an amount. So I'll put $50. Whoops, 50. By default, it's going to be billable, reimbursable, but I could change this, right? And I could even select when creating my expense type what are the default values for these. And if ever on this expense type I required the expense receipt to be attached, it would be required here. So I think it is the case for meals. Let's try it. Here we go. So if you're not attaching it, it's going to ask for an image to be inserted. Let me just see if there is one that does not require it, just to see if it goes through. And if not, I go same thing. So let's add an expense. Upload a new file. I'm gonna go to pictures, anything, client.png. There you go. Done. The client logo is right here, and if I save now, here it goes. It worked fine. So I've got my expense line of lodging that is default reimbursable, billable. It has not been invoiced. You'll be able to see that on your expense and the amount. So each time you will add expense lines, the details of your expense report will change. So that's how we track expenses. And at the end, when I say the end, is what you want to do is you might want to invoice that expense report and add it to your invoices to be created. So you could submit for approval these expense report or not. And then it would make them available when you will generate your invoices. Let's now look at the last piece of the puzzle, the invoicing portion. We'll look at the generate invoice interface and then what an invoice record looks like. So let's dive in quickly. I'm on the client projects. What I would like to do is to generate an invoice for many or maybe one project in particular. I might be a project manager or an accounting team member. So I will go on the generate invoice interface. From here, there are a couple of options. So first, you can invoice per project or per account. I'll leave it per project for now. I'll select 2 months just to collect as much data as possible because we were in a demo org, obviously. You can search for different billing types. So the billing type we discussed earlier, which are the billing method, will always appear here. We will always recommend to leave all for now because you want to see everything. And the approval status, usually all of your items that you want to be displayed on an invoice should be approved. This way you don't end up with any surprises. But you could also search for not approved items if ever you want to validate or proceed with unapproved lines. So the results are here per project. You've got 3 big columns to look at. So the fixed amount, all of the amounts related to a project billing. So for example, you might set a fixed fee at the beginning of your project, or monthly or recurring amounts that you want to charge your customer. Those would end up here, or maybe even some payment related to a milestone completion. So at a certain time in your project, you want a specific amount to be invoiced. So all of these amounts would end up in this column. The other column will only show you data related to time entry. So your resources are working, they are logging time on a time and expense project. That's very important. And on this time and expense project, this time multiplied by the rate of the resource, or if you're using a rate card, these items will all be considered, and you'll get the amount to be invoiced. The last column is the expense column. So in this column, you'll see any amounts related to expenses that could have been created on a specific project. So as I said, I look at the approved, I'll show you the not approved search. So you'll see the results are different. I have one expense report that has not been approved on the Acme 2 project. I've got 4 hours of not approved, but when I look at approved, this same project, the Acme 2, I have 6 hours of approved time and an expense report of $375 that is approved. So let's just create the invoice. What you need to do is to select one or many, and then you click on create invoice. The system is taking all of the items that were presented here and pull them together and create one record, which is called the invoice. In this case, it created invoice 16. Let's click on this. A lot of information will be presented on an invoice record. When you first create it, you might need to refresh just to see the here we go, the information coming on your new invoice. So what you see now is in the invoice line item section, everything related to your time entry has been brought over. So Roxanne Green entered 6 hours on the task design. Here were here are her timesheet notes, everything she wrote in the note of my timesheet, what was her rate and what's the amount. So you've got a line item that has been created here. The invoice expense item section is going to create one expense item line, invoice expense item line per expense line that was created. So with the detail, you'll see the expense line and the amount as well. Anything related to fixed fee amounts would be created in this section in the same format as you see above. And the invoice additional item is just giving you the possibility to create at the invoice moment. So when you're invoicing a new line item that you would like to consider that is not a fixed fee, an expense line, or an expense line, or an invoice line item that you just want to add to the invoice. Here you're going to see the payment. So if you're tracking, maybe you're connected with an accounting system and you're pulling back that information or you're entering it manually, so you could write the payments that were done on this invoice, all of the files that you would like to add to the invoice. So I'm not talking about the expense related files. We'll see that a bit later on. And the invoice history section providing you information of what has been done and or when was created that invoice. Those are all the related items. I started with them because we came from the generate invoice tool. Then if I look at the detail of my invoice, standard information, the name, that could all be also set if you want to have a specific name or number, because these are auto numbered. So when you generate a new invoice, it's going to populate with an auto number, and you can set that to answer your need. After that, you got the dates information, payment schedule information, what's the invoice, the total invoice of all these items, including this, whatever has been paid with a balance that would be auto adjusted. The which project is it for, and then you've got information that comes from your organization that is there. We set up the brainstorm box to be the organization from which you are invoicing, because if you remember well, you could have more than one organization in your client instance. In this case, we invoiced from the brainstorm box, so it pulled some default information on the invoice, such as the payment schedule and the sales tax. Also, if you look at the other section, that comes from the organization, but can always be adjusted as per you need if ever you want to. There are some features that are related to accounting systems or integration you might want to use or not. So you could hide or display these fields, or these fields, or even section. So that could be all hidden. Then you've got the financial information, so everything related to labor amount, expense amount, fixed fee amount, so of this record. Very interesting. And this is the invoice formatting section. So I was talking about information that was coming from the organization. I know we covered it very, very briefly, but these are options that will change the behavior of this invoice, or maybe the behavior in creation, the format of your PDF that could be generated on this invoice. So let's look at this now. The invoice formatting is saying that we want to, for example, display an amount column, we want to display a tax column, we want to include the rate on the invoice, to display the timesheet notes or the comments from your resources. So these would all be appear on your PDF, but you could select not to display them. You could include the receipt. So I was talking about the included attachment on my expenses, so I could select to add this, include the notes if ever I have any, the notes and the expense notes, sorry, and then all of the payment information. This comes from the organization. So as you see here, this footer note originates from organization. You can all change that, but I'm going to leave it for now and click on preview PDF. This is generating the PDF from the information we had on the invoice. So as I said, the cycle is really your users are working, your approvers are approving, you generate an invoice, and what you end up with is stuff that has been approved, and that should make sense to be sent out to your customer. So information from the organization by default, your logo, your address, and then invoice information that we saw on the invoice record. We had some time related information, so we know that this resource entered this amount of hours at this rate for this total amount. We also add some expenses, so we had another section in which we don't see the detail, but combines the services hour and the expense. So you could hide or display this section depending on the invoice formatting options you're choosing. Add or show or hide the tax, as we saw earlier, and it gives you your amount. You see there are many pages. We're going to look at this. This is the information we saw that could be displayed on your invoice automatically in the footer notes. Here, based on one of the options, I wanted to have a detail of my per resource. So now I got one resource, Roxanne, who entered these amount of hours. So that's one detail I could have on a separate page. Same thing for the expenses, and I also asked for the expense receipt, or the expense receipt to be displayed. In this case, these are logos, just for the sake of the demo. But you get the idea. That's a very useful out-of-the-box tool that could be that is provided, included in your Client PSA. The other options you see at the top, the first one is related to Xero integration. If you're not using it, we could always hide it. And then the email invoice is an option to invoice, to email, your invoice to your customer. The get payment from QuickBook is the same as Xero, and we can hide. And the last one is the Invoice Workspace. So using this tool, you will be able to add maybe some, or create easily some write-offs. So maybe your invoice is already created, but at some point you would like to your customer not to be charged for one of the items that was created from your users, approved by your managers or by your approvers, and that end up on the invoice. But at a certain point you want to have a write-off for that. Instead of going back and forging the hour and playing with the numbers, you remain on the invoice and you select items to be excluded. So either you're gonna say, well, you know what, I had this expense line here that I will not include, so I will write off. This allows me to still display this line or have it on the invoice, and the customer will know that you took this this amount on you, basically, so that you're not charging him for this amount. So it could be very useful. So if I go back and refresh this invoice, you will see that the balance changed because I'm not considering this amount anymore. It has been written off, right? And I could or not decide to include it on the invoice. It would show as a negative amount on my PDF. So there are a lot of options to help you with invoices. Keep in mind that one could maybe decide to use its own its own solution to generate documents that would replace maybe the out-of-the-box PDF, because you have a more custom template that you would like to use. So that's it. That's the invoice portion of Client.